Firefighters in Los Angeles are unable to contain wildfires raging in several parts of the city. The official death toll has now risen to 5, with many more injured. More than 1,000 buildings have already been destroyed in the largest blaze, making it one of the most destructive fires ever in California.
The sky has changed its color in the Los Angeles area. A series of wildfires that started on the outskirts of the city has spread to several suburban communities. The blazes have already destroyed or damaged thousands of homes. Tens of thousands of residents have been ordered to evacuate as the inferno continues to rage.
It's Armageddon. I'm driving through a war zone right now and I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless. I'm shocked. I'm just so sad for our devastated community. We lost 600 homes in the Woosley fire, one of which was mine. And now I don't even know how we're going to be able to recover from this.
And the battle against the flames remains a massive challenge. Dry weather and extremely windy conditions with speeds up to 160 kilometers per hour have hampered efforts to contain the fires. Aircraft had to be grounded due to the strong winds, while firefighters on the ground are overwhelmed.
And the fire continues to grow with 0% containment. We have over 500 personnel assigned, and unfortunately, we have 2 reported fatalities to civilians. Unknown cause at this time, and we do have a number of significant injuries.
Local fire departments have asked off-duty firefighters to help battle the blazes and say the cause has yet to be investigated. The situation remains dire.
The National Weather Service has predicted a continued red flag weather event with strong winds and low humidities, placing all residents of Los Angeles County in danger.
And even in downtown LA, where people are safe from the flames, the inferno is becoming more dangerous, with the air quality getting worse.
Let's bring in DW reporter Stefan Simons, who's on the scene in Los Angeles. So, Stefan, we've been seeing scenes of vast devastation, and there's also images that you can only describe as apocalyptic on social media. So tell us, what exactly are you seeing?
Well, they're not far off with characterizing those, what we see here as apocalyptic, but the truth is, maybe not apocalyptic, but massive destruction is here on display on every corner you turn. Right behind me, if you see here, this fire crew is trying to really extinguish the last flames of what destroyed a Jewish temple here in Pasadena. It's completely gone, a complete loss. And if you look around, maybe my cameraman can do this here, all the houses and other properties here on this compound, completely gone. If you look up there into the mountains, there is where the fire came from, and this is the Eaton fire. That's basically to the right of the of the Palisade Heights fire. They're both still growing. The winds are picking up a little bit. This fire here consumed 10,600 acres, and there is hundreds of firefighters employed here, deployed, and of course the mayor of LA as well as the fire chief here has said it's all hands on deck, because they really need everybody who has experience with firefighting to be here, or in all those fires, 3, 4 in total, with this one 3 others, to actually tackle those flames which come back. There's structures who get ablaze again. Fire is jumping from one street to another. One house is spared, 2 others are completely destructed, then another one spared. It's complete, if you will, chaos and complete chaotic destruction here.
So in the face of all that destruction, it really begs the question, how exactly did these fires spread so quickly?
Well, that was a surprise. It wasn't a surprise that we were supposed to have Santa Ana winds here. That was news from 3 days ago. But the worst they thought happens is maybe 1 or 2 brush fires, and with moderate speed. Now, those Santa Ana winds came here with 100 miles per hour tornado strength, and down the hills, picking up the fire and really dropping it basically onto the outskirts of the city. Palisades Heights, here Eaton, Pasadena, Altadena, and so on. So now we have 4 big fires, and again, the speed and the ferocity of those fires was not what was expected. Prepared for 2 does not make you the master of if you have to deal with 4 massive fires.
And as we can see behind you, firefighters are doing their best to contain the blazes. At the same time, officials are saying that they're 0% contained. So the question is, how bad could things get in the coming days?
Easily worse than it is now, and it's already really, really bad. If the winds are picking up, and thank goodness as of now this is not in the forecast, but if this is happening and firefighters cannot get a quick handle on growing fires still, then things can get even worse. Maybe not here locally where I am right now, but just let's say 2 miles this way or 2 miles that way. Anything can happen when those winds pick up. And of course, you know, the problem is when those winds pick up and when they are sustainedly strong, then you can't put any air assets into the air. No helicopters who drop fire retardant or water, or fixed wing planes which carry a lot of fire retardant and water, and I really needed to put a damp on all those fires. Yeah, otherwise this is free growing. And just with ground crews, fire department, LA Fire Department, California Fire, Cal Fire, or hotshot groups from all over the nation, even the president saying, hey, we're sending 2,000 National Guard to help you. You cannot do this with boots on the ground only. You need to have all the assets at display at your fingertips and have to employ them. If that's not possible because the weather is not playing along, well, then things can get easily worse here.
All right, that was DW reporter Stefan Simons in Los Angeles. Many thanks for your reporting, and do stay safe. I asked meteorologist Matthew Cappucci what we knew about the cause of these fires and their rapid spread.
We believe these were kind of human-caused fires, simply by whether it be, backyard barbecue accidents or something like that. We don't necessarily know the exact cause yet, but we do know that given the conditions, they were able to spread exponentially. Now one has quintupled in the past 24 hours. The Palisades fire is now over 5,000 hectares and continuing to grow, and the weather is making it even worse. Get this, the humidity there right now, 1%. The atmosphere is sucking any moisture out of the ground, desiccating the landscape and making it easier for these fires to burn, in addition to very strong winds. Burbank had a gust to 130 kilometers per hour, their strongest on record. They've never seen a gust over 107. And so when you factor in extreme winds, extremely dry air, hot temperatures, and a lack of recent rainfall, it's no surprise we're getting such a high-end and potentially deadly event.
Well, yes, as you were saying there, the weather does seem to be exacerbating these fire conditions. And of course, January is not a typical time of year for wildfires, but the region is also no stranger to large-scale fires. So the question is, could the scale of damage have been prevented in any way?
Yeah, that's really tricky to say. I think in this case, it's simply a matter of an expanding footprint. In Southern California, fires are part of the landscape. Fires are part of the ecosystem. It happens every few years. But when you start building bigger and bigger and bigger cities, you're going to have more potential for damage, loss, and casualties. In this case, however, you have very densely packed neighborhoods with no real breaks for a fire to stop at. And so in situations like this, it's easier for the fire to run all the way down the foothills and potentially to the ocean. Until this is either contained or burns to the ocean, I don't really see much of an end in sight, given there aren't really many natural barriers here. One other point, you mentioned moments ago that January is not typically when we see these fires. You're exactly right. We ordinarily would see them until about maybe October or November, by which point the winter rains would start to arrive, and come December, fire season should be over. That's not really the case. We just haven't really seen any arrival of the winter rains. It's been so incredibly dry over the past few months. We've seen less than a quarter of the typical rainfall. And so in the wintertime, when we get these strong wind events and the landscape's a tinderbox, you get big time fires like this that are more typical of peak fire season.
Now, beyond the immediate danger, what health issues do fires of this size present?
Air quality issues, big time. In fact, the worst air quality anywhere in the Western Hemisphere is in the Los Angeles metro area, which, keep in mind, that's the second biggest city in the United States. So you have 4 million people underneath the shroud of toxic air. For anyone in the area right now, I'd recommend shutting the windows, making sure your ACs and your heating units are such that you don't have to worry about any outside air being ingested, because it really is toxic. So that's a huge concern there as well, not just for vulnerable populations, children, the elderly, those with respiratory issues, but for the entire population. The air is hazardous.
All right, so the question of the hour is there any relief in sight? Will the weather forecast help firefighters contain these blazes?
Well, I'm optimistic that Thursday the wind should back off a little bit, so there won't be as much spreading. That said, that doesn't really help the 5 fires that are already ongoing right now. Thursday, we'll have another batch of very dry air move in, and then come Friday, another round of these Santa Ana winds. When the air is pushed down the hills, it heats up, dries up, and accelerates, causing strong winds. That's exactly what we'll see Friday into the weekend. So really, things briefly get better, but they'll get worse this weekend. And now that we already have fires going, all it takes is a little spark, a little ember from one of the extant fires to spark a new one. That's already happened. We're up to 5 fires now, and I dare say we'll have more coming in these next few days.
All right, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. That was meteorologist Matthew Cappucci. Thanks for your analysis.
Thank you.
I'm joined now by John Heinsen, who has lived in Altadena since 2003 and was forced to evacuate from the fires. John, thank you very much for joining us. So we're going to bring up some pictures that you were able to film during your flight. Can you actually walk us through what it was like when you fled from your home?
Sure. So last night, when the fire started about dinner time, my son and I went out to the fire line, which was at a canyon very close to where we live. And the fire burned through the evening, and I went back to my home in the middle of the night. But in the morning when I woke up, I had now seen the devastation through the neighborhood. And this is a very historic neighborhood at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains in Los Angeles. These homes are well over 100 years old. And so now you're seeing these hundreds of homes that have been devastated in the immediate area. But the fires are continuing. And so this is actually the problem, is that many homes are on fire. And because of the big winds that are ongoing from the previous few days, it's jumping from house to house. And so it's still very, very dangerous. And so the evening was really going through the mountains, which are at the front of the canyon, but now all of the homes are threatened. And so the wave is going from the west to the east because of the winds. And so I decided now that my home would be threatened, and I came down to Orange County to stay with relatives.
Now, can you walk us through what your thought process was? Was it a warning from the authorities that made you make the decision to leave, or was it what you were seeing happen to your neighbors' homes?
No, it was very quickly. The police were coming through because of the, we're very used to fires in California, and when they're a threat, they want to get people out of the area as quickly as possible because they have to move a lot of equipment through. And then also the whole idea of if airplanes were going to drop water, which they weren't able to do last night because of the high winds. So they were coming through first with cars and then later knocking on doors. And unfortunately, 5 people died in our neighborhood, mostly because they didn't leave. And by the time they realized their house was on fire, they were overcome by smoke.
Now, you've said you're used to fires in California, but we've been hearing from many people we've been talking to that they have reached an unprecedented level. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, we had a huge fire in 2009 that took out 100,000 acres. This fire is very significant because of the homes that are being affected. Where we particularly are in Altadena is really interesting because we're adjacent to the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab. So that's a government facility, and so the military will do whatever they can to make sure a fire doesn't happen. And on the mountains above us is the Mount Wilson Observatory, which are some of the most advanced telescopes on the Earth. So very often when there have been fires in the past, they bring a lot of resources to bear. But now in this case, because it got down to where the homes are, they just weren't prepared for it. And they've even brought in fire people from Arizona to help fight these fires.
No, this may be a sensitive question, but do you know what's left of your home? Has it survived the blaze?
So where my kids live, we're trying to figure out if they survived. The house, the building adjacent to them was destroyed this morning. My house is in the line of where the fire is coming, and I have not heard yet. I'm hoping I'll know by tomorrow morning if it's survived or not.
All right, that was John Heinsen. Thank you very much for talking to us, and we wish you all the best from Berlin.
Thank you. Vielen Dank.